Welcome everybody to Healing for Work. So glad that you can be here with us today to go over this new program that we're launching in the coming weeks. So let me tell you a little bit about our guides. I'm going to tell you a little bit myself, and I'll pass it on to my co-pilot, Heidi. So I'm Amy J. Wilson. I go by she and they. I'm the founder and the CEO of Healing for Work and a new program I'm also creating called the Empathy Action Lab. And what I also bring people together in a cooperative fashion to start engaging and thinking about how do we solve some of our biggest challenges in the world. So I'm also an author called of Empathy for Change, How to Create a More Understanding World. And I have done a lot of work in practitioners, building a culture of innovation on one side of the spectrum, but then also a culture of empathy and compassion on the other. So I've been doing a lot of practice and practitioners and doing this work. And so I know in a deep way through my own work and through work of innovation and change that we need to really change ourselves first before we change the whole system. And so some of the things that I'm doing right now that I'm excited for is I teach innovation for the public good at UNC Chapel Hill, and I'm also teaching a course around ethics and public policy and technological change at Stanford University. And I'm a certified self-care leadership coach. And I also work in social and emotional learning through my book and other programs that I run. So Heidi, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, Amy, you have a long list of experiences. Thank you for sharing with us. Yeah, I'm Heidi Marlinghouse. I'm a former educator, elementary school teacher. And I got into that profession because I'm really passionate about helping people gain the tools and skills that they need to navigate the ups and downs of life, the emotional side of life and the social side of life. Because I found I didn't have them when I was growing up. And to no fault of anyone, it wasn't my parents' fault or anything. They didn't have the skills either. There was nobody teaching them. So I felt like becoming a teacher would help children to have these skills as they're growing up. And then when they go out into the adult world, they're prepared. But I'm also very passionate about supporting adults through that process. I had to go through that process myself to get where I am right now, to be able to learn this, to teach it. And so I am a social emotional learning expert, and that's a term that comes from education. I'm a mindfulness practitioner and a trainer. I have a lot of training in trauma informed and how to, navigate triggers and support people who are coming from different places. I do some consulting around equity and inclusion. I've learned appreciative inquiry, which comes out of positive psychology to facilitate conversations and guide strategic plans, and I've hosted conferences around it. And I'm also co-authoring a book called The Trail of Conversations, Appreciative Inquiry in K-12. And I'm co-authoring that with Jennifer Osger, who is also on the appreciative inquiry path with me. So yeah, really looking at changing how we interact with one another and how we work on our systems, both in the schools, but also just for the world, because what we do in schools eventually branches out into the big wide world.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And thank you, Heidi, for introducing yourself. One of the things that I wanted to share is that with this work, as we do into work with change, and I co-create in my cooperative, I bring in educators like yourself and other people in the areas that need the most help. And schools are certainly something that education is an area that is really near and dear to my heart, but also like I was going through a lot of like challenges right now. And so I'm grateful that you're working with me on this project as we go forward in this program. So I've been recovering from burnout since 2015, and I have witnessed more and more people falling prey to this. And I feel like it's only gotten worse, especially in the pandemic. I've been doing this. And as I've been collecting stories, reading and exploring this topic for many years. And I found a few ideas along the way. And I wanted to show this clip here about, and I think it speaks to one of the moment that we're in and why we need to change. So let me just play this for a minute or two.
We've been burnt out for the past few years. I just realized today that it's not just me who's been feeling this way, but collectively a majority of people, especially at work, have been feeling so burnt out. And it's to the point where vacations aren't solving this, taking time off isn't solving it. Nothing is really working. I have a theory as to the reason why. I'm sure it's probably a few things. Of course, we live through unprecedented times, aka a pandemic, political unrest, major amounts of information that we're constantly taking in on a daily basis online. Plus this whole like hybrid situation, it's exhausting. And I think because of quarantine and the pandemic, a lot of us got used to living a slower, more intentional life. It still was a reset time for a lot of us. And I feel like when the world opened back up, we didn't really take those learnings with us. Instead, we decided to operate back to what things were before and go 110%. I don't know about y'all, but I want to take the learnings that we learned from slowing down and apply them to right now. To operate at 110% anymore. I just want to like live and thrive. Anyway, does anyone else feel this way? Also, like, let's talk about solutions, what we can do, because I really am kind of like out of luck here. Like, what do y'all do to combat serious, like, years worth of burnout?
Yeah. And I when I listened to this, I really resonated with it. I think it was in the middle of a pandemic when I saw this for the first time. And I personally was was already really fascinated by it, but also related to it in a deep way. And as the woman here talks about in a in a in a longer later on in this presentation or her talk here, she talks about how I don't have solutions for this. And I think what we're doing right now is trying to create a solution for the angst and challenges and overwhelm that we have been experiencing throughout our life. So this is what Healing for Work really is designed for, to help us to come out of constant burnout and to emerge and to create action and really change our lives. So what I would say here is that there's a lot of data that's showing that there is a lot of people right now talking about this work, not only on social media, but there's a podcast that came out recently called Boundaries, Burnout, and the Goopification of Self-Care, that came from the Ezra Klein show, where the host interviews Pooja Lakshmi, Dr. Pooja Lakshmi, where she talks about real self-care. And self-care is not about what she says, crystals, cleanses, and bubble baths. It really is about how do I build the power within myself to be a leader and to change and grow in a deeper way. And so that's juxtaposed against these stats that are coming out that says that 79% of US workers are either emotionally detached or miserable at work. And then roughly the same amount, 2/3 of us are looking for more fulfilling work. And then also 76% of people of US workers in particular have been reporting at least one symptom of a mental health condition over the past few years. And what is interesting is that this work is most people would go to therapy, but therapy is even overwhelmed. And this work that we do, although it's not therapy, it is very therapeutic, and it allows us to heal in community, kind of taking like mutual support networks and coming together and engaging with each other. It's a peer-to-peer network with some experts coming in and out to tell you So give you some information that you need to know, and how do you change and make change
And
happen. So
I'd love to speak to this a little bit, Amy, because
yeah.
I know you have your own experience, but I definitely have experience with burnout. And when I look at these statistics, you know, most of us are 79% of workers are emotionally detached or miserable at work. I was not emotionally detached. I was very emotionally involved as a teacher, but I was miserable. I was absolutely miserable because the system and what was coming at me was not working. And I wanted to figure out better ways so that I could heal, so that I could still do my job. I didn't want to get out of my job. I really wanted to be part of it. But it just wasn't working the way it was. So I needed some support. And then the last statistic there, the 76% of US workers reported at least one symptom of a mental health condition. You know, that manifested in me as depression and anxiety. And so I did see a therapist, and my therapist really did help me with that. But I also had, you know, a group of like-minded people who had some tools to support me. And having a group like that, having a collaborative group, really helped me to belong and not isolate. It helped me to know that I wasn't alone. And then also to be able to talk out those tools and hear other people using them in their own lives and be like, oh, okay, so that's what it looks like. Like I heard this from my therapist, but now I'm kind of seeing it more in action. I can relate in different ways so that I can integrate it into my life. Or it would kind of morph into something slightly different where it fit me better, you know. But just being able to have those conversations and those relationships was hugely helpful. And you know, I still am working in the educational sector and making a difference there because I have been able to use these tools. So, you know, we're coming from a place, both you and I, where not only are we there to support people and help people learn new tools, but we've been there ourselves. So we know it firsthand. And I think that makes a huge difference when we're all getting together and having these conversations.
I don't think I could say it better myself, but I like that. It's like we're practitioners in the world, but we're also healing ourselves, is what, you know, what we're saying in short. You know, we're working on this, but we've also been harmed by some things that have been happening in the world as well. So we're in this together, is what it comes down to. So you probably are wondering, like, who is this for? You probably have some ideas of what you've been thinking about. And this program is for employees who are within a work system, which most of us are, and they're looking for support to come through and work through burnout and create sustainable practices that help you be more present in your work and home life. So two big areas that we've seen is social change leaders, people in helping professions. Those individuals are taking care of a lot of people and are more likely to experience compassion fatigue. And there's another phrase that comes from the therapy world around empathic distress. And we will dive deeper into those pieces as we do this work. So it's people who are really just overwhelmed by life. And I think that's a lot of us right now.
Yeah, and it could even be people who aren't employed, but are working at home to take care of a family and a household, because
Sure.
there's a lot of empathic distress there when you're, you know, managing your own family and taking care of all their needs. So absolutely.
Absolutely. Or people have left the profession, like I took a sabbatical 5 years ago, and I was like, I can't do this anymore. I'm stopping the wheel and getting off. And so if you're in transition, this is for you as well. So what are we really trying to do here is we're trying to address this traumatic effect that has been happening over the past several years. The overwhelm that the woman was talking about earlier in the video we showed, and it's really comes down to this idea of trauma. a lot of people have been also sharing about Bessel van der Kolk and his work around The Body Keeps the Score, is a huge bestseller, even though it's been out for 10, 15 years. So this idea of trauma is trauma that we've experienced in the workplace. So, and this one definition of trauma is that it's a set of experiences and or impacts that break or betray our inherent need for safety, for belonging, and for dignity. And that's from Stacey Haynes, and she wrote the book, The Politics of Trauma. And she focuses on somatics, which is soma is part of the body. And how is our body taking in the trauma of everyday life? And there's been so many significant experiences that have led to that. And I mentioned before, therapists are having challenges meeting the demand. More and more people are having anxiety and depression in the world. We have a mental health crisis. We have isolation challenges as well. And we just have, like, there's a lot of dysfunction happening in the world, and it's bleeding into our work lives. So we try to help people work through the effects of this dysfunction that seeps into our lives, and try to make sense of it and center ourselves and be ready for and be more resilient for whatever comes our way.
All right. So the 4Rs framework is, covering regulation. So really talking about how do we regulate with our emotions? How do we recognize our emotions? What do they mean to us? What are they telling us? All of these things come in that first section of this program, which we're calling it Module 1 for now, and it covers the first 3 months or so of content. And then the second module, or the second R in the framework, is relationships. So taking what you've learned about yourself, once you learn how to have compassion, empathy, understand your emotions, and kind of what drives those emotions, then it makes it easier to interact with other people where, your emotions come up in conversations or in relationships. So now if you know how to navigate and regulate all of that, then your relationships become easier. And then also we have a better sense of how other people tick, because we know how we tick. So it's like, oh, well, then they're dealing with something, even though they're not exactly the same as us. We have a better sense of having empathy and compassion, because we understand that everybody has a different need. So that second module really focuses on how we interact with others. And then the third module is more about how do we take all these skills that we've learned about ourselves in the regulation piece, and then about relationships, and how do we be resilient in situations that we don't necessarily have control of. We don't always have control over what's happening at work, or the decisions that are being made, or the way the system is run. And that can be really frustrating for a lot of us. So how do we thrive and still maintain our boundaries and our values and all of that within something that we don't have control of? And so that third module is all about resilience. And then at the end of the program, and we're looking at like a full year cycle, would be the last module for reintegration. So how do we integrate these things back into our lives? That's why it's reintegration. How do we get back into, being a part of this work system, being a part of our family system, our friend network, the whole bit, and integrate all these concepts that we've just covered over the last year, where we've been talking with other people about how it's working in their life. I mean, we're integrating the whole time, but that last chunk is really going back to reflect on how it's working. What do I need to adjust? What do I need to adapt? And taking a deeper dive as far as really letting it sink in and being able to not just practice it, but live it.
They keep coming back in community and be with each other. I would add to that. So really, also really intentional about centering this on your experience of those who are coming through the program. And it's an individual experience, but it's also a community experience. So the outcomes that we're hoping for the people who participate will have over the term of this is that it's threefold. Number one, we think that we want to help you build awareness of emotions such as shame, anxiety, and fear about the future of success. We also want you to start accepting those emotions and learn how to manage them and not be overwhelmed by them. And the last piece is, how do you identify and change those behaviors that might be self-destructive and unhealthy for your way of living? And the way we do this is what we call the healing loop. It is a process that we do over the course of every month and over the course of the entire year. So as you do this work, you're going to see and share. You're going to see and share with each other in the sessions. You're going to start seeing how we perceive the world, which is the window, but also have self-awareness for ourselves, which is called the mirror. And then over those sessions, you're going to be heard, seen, and witnessed. We're going to share those messy, complicated stories and also reframe the narrative that we have in our heads. And we lean into compassion for ourselves and for others. And then step two is when we engage. We go out into the world, we show up and engage relationally with each other. We listen, we build relationships, create a container for our work, and start engaging in our life and seeing, okay, now we have awareness. Now we can say, what is actually showing up that we've seen this. And step three is called act. And that's how we design, decide, implement, learn. It's how we influence direction. We're bringing focus to our action. So we're engaging in safe to fail experiments. So we create many action plans to take all these things as we've built awareness, as we started engaging, reflecting on our experience and being like, how do we really try to change our behavior at the end of the day? How can I get involved? That's what the healing. So we have 3 pathways we are developing. We have a base model called support. And that's for individuals who want to connect in community around healing for work. And this is like the lowest level of commitment or engagement with us. And that's a monthly community discussion group. So we have 60-minute sessions. We also invite you to our community WhatsApp group to receive and give support from people in that community. Number 2 is called action, where you get everything that happens in the support group. You're also going to get monthly topic and action sessions. So in the first and third months, you're going to have 90-minute sessions where we're going to go deep. We're going to use a workbook that you're also getting in action to work through, reflect on your experience, understand where we are right now, where you are right now, but also see where you need to go. And then you're also
I'd like to clarify on that. It's the first and third weeks of each month.
Sorry.
Yeah. And then the monthly community discussion group is the first Fridays of each month.
The second Friday.
Second Fridays, thank you.
Yeah. So second Friday for support groups, we have the dates at the end of the presentation. Then we have action here. That's the second and third weeks. Thank you for that. So that piece there, it's not months. Every month is first and third. Sorry. So then we have coming soon a circle, which has all the things with support and action, but we also have monthly. We have accountability partners and group coaching. So that's much more involved, and you get to have Heidi or I, or maybe other people in our network as well to like coach you specifically through and have accountability for your actions. And we have a custom workbook and a private WhatsApp group with that too. And throughout this program, like we were just saying a minute ago, we have action. The action strategy is Action Monthly Breakdown Week 1. We're going to introduce a topic and assign reflection activities. You're going to do your activities and do some reflection. But then 2 weeks later in week 3, after you've engaged in your world, you'll start to do some integration and some action planning. And then you're going to complete your activities or reflection that week or way as well. Like in sessions, you're going to reflect in groups with other people, and you're also going to be, being in community in the bigger group.
Yeah, so we were talking about the modules earlier. And so under regulation, we'll be talking about things such as self-awareness, emotional self-regulation, and identity in the window. Module 2 is about relationships, and the breakdown for that is social dynamics and the system that we're working in, setting boundaries and improve relationships. And then module 3, that resilience piece, is self-reflection, competence and commitment, and being able to reach out, getting support and things like that. Module 4 is that reintegration piece, and that's really kind of going to flow. The conversations and the topics are going to flow more as needed with the group. It's a time to check in and reflect on how things are going, and then to carry on conversations with each other and support each other with the topics that are arising.
Mm-hmm.
And then the research behind this, the social emotional learning that we talked about earlier, is something that comes out of education. And that's one piece of this program. And you can see here the wheel that we see on the right comes from CASEL, and they're a coalition of academics and social emotional learning. And they have these 5 components of social emotional learning, which are self-awareness and self-management, responsible decision-making, relationship skills, and then social awareness. And that tends to flow with how our modules are going. So you can match them up or pair them up. And that's where the social emotional learning piece comes into this. We also have dialectical behavioral therapy that is a resource that we use. And that's really about how we think about things, and checking our perspectives and possibly even adjusting our perspectives. Appreciative inquiry is focusing on what strengths we already have and what our goals are, where we want to go and how to achieve them, versus just looking at what's not working, because whatever we focus on is what grows. So if we're focused on the negative or the problem, we're just going to grow the problem. But if we can focus on the solution, we bypass the problem or we overcome the problem, and that's the goal. So it's not that we're ignoring the problem, we just want to get to the point where we're really getting to that solution. Emotional intelligence is key to understanding your emotions and being able to define them and recognize them and name them. And then, of course, there's 12-step programs, which both Amy and I have some experience in, and there is a lot of learning your own boundaries, learning how to thrive around situations that you don't have control over. And maybe they're reasonable situations, maybe they're chaos, but we still learn to thrive regardless of what's going on around us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a really great discussion of all the different kinds of research that goes into that. And I have to double click on that part about 12-step programs. I consign to that, like it's dealing in chaos. How do you be centered?
Yeah, and my background in the 12-step programs is more around codependency and just overly giving, and sometimes that's where burnout comes from, is just giving too much of ourselves, too much of our time, and not setting those boundaries. So it's important to learn those skills.
We have like a wealth of knowledge that we can pull from with ourselves, but from a lot of other wisdom in the room from other people who may have been going through these programs as well. And so a couple frameworks that have come out or we use and engage with in our work is, on the left-hand side, the U.S. Surgeon General's framework for mental health and well-being in the workplace is on that right-hand side with the 5 petals. And then there's also a framework that I've created and put in my book around how do you anchor yourself kind of with a full body approach, starting with your heart, moving forward into your head, and then taking action in a bigger way. And so there's other ones that are coming from frameworks that Jennifer and Heidi have put together in their book, A Trail of Conversations, from previous support group work that I've done in a previous iteration of this work that we're bringing in to really create a really robust program.
Yeah, here we were talking about the 3 pathways, and we wanted to bring a little more information about it. So you can see that this is the breakdown. We did also add organization and school onto this plan. There's a monthly breakdown. So for the support sessions that happen once a month on the second Fridays of every month, it's a $25 a month fee for that, and that gives you that monthly discussion group, and they last about 60 minutes. If you were to choose the action plan, it's $197 a month, and you have access to that support session, but you also have 2 monthly topics that come up in action sessions on the first and the third Wednesdays of every month, and those last for 90 minutes. And so that includes like tips and tools and discussions and one-on-one conversations with other people in that particular group. Plus you have a workbook so that you can really work through this and keep, artifacts on how you're going to move forward with it and what you're learning from other people within that group. The circle plan is something that's coming soon, and this is a really deep dive. It includes all of the above, so the monthly discussion group on the second Fridays and the 2 monthly action sessions that are 90 minutes long on the first and third Wednesdays. But then this also gives you an accountability partner to talk to and interact with throughout the course of these sessions, and group coaching. So that's where Amy or myself would come in and support the group. Excuse me, I felt that one coming on. And with this circle group, we actually have a custom workbook, so we'll adapt it to fit the needs that are coming up within those sessions. And all of these have a community WhatsApp group, but the circle has a private WhatsApp group on top of the community group so that conversations can continue throughout, but the private group is a little more detailed. And then we're offering the same thing as the circle for an entire organization or a school. If an employer wanted to bring in a group of people, maybe a particular team or just some people in their system that they realize, you know what, we need to really boost our energy here and boost morale and get things back on track since the pandemic. We've really, lost our form. Then this is a great way to bring that into the organization. And those dates are up to the organization or the school. And from there, we would just schedule, it's kind of like a private group for that particular organization. Same content, same format as the circle group, but directly for an organization or a school.
Heidi, do you want
So
to talk about this?
We have discounts available as well. And these discounts are available if you choose to take a yearly subscription. So if you're just trying it out for a month or 2, then that's a little different. But if you're doing the full year, we can provide these discounts. And if you give a testimonial, if you've worked with us in some other fashion and you give a testimonial, that'll get you a 10% discount. If you want to take a deeper dive into the content that we have before we start on November 1st, we can give 15% for your feedback. And we have a form that you can fill out and tell us how we're doing and what additions we might want to make. And we've already done that. I mean, we had an AMA 2 weeks ago, and we've had some feedback. And since then, we've made some adjustments to really fit what people are asking for. So this is something that we're creating and building with you so that it can really fit what your needs are. And then the last discount available is if you would like to be part of our launch team and really help us push out social media and or emails and just kind of, get the word out, spread the word about what we're doing. If you were to do all of those, they add up to 50% off. So you could get 50% off. If you're doing the support group, you could get it for $12.50 if you signed up for the full year, $12.50 a month. So yeah, and the what was the other one? The action would be around $100 for the 50% off if you did all three and you signed up for the full year.
Yep, for a month. Yeah. Yep, those are the discounts we have, and then we've got also organizational. If an organization wants to send a large group to the circle as we go deeper into that and launch that, people can also, if you're for the circle, if you're paying it as well. So we have a couple of support session dates. So if you recall, there's support, there's action, and then there's circle. We're not launching the circle right yet, but we're doing support and action. So that means once a month, we're going to be focused on modules, the modules that we've been focusing on. So module 1 would be focused in orientation would be happening in November. We go December and January into module 1. Module 2, when we talk about relationships, is February, March, April. Resilience, May, June, July, and reintegration is August, September, and October. And for action, again, it's the first and third weeks, first and third Wednesday of every month. And these are the dates that we have scheduled here. We're having an intro session on the November 1st. And these are the dates that we've got.
Yeah, and on
So,
module 4, where we do the reintegration, that's a once a month meeting.
Right. Yep. Okay. So anybody have any Q&A?
Yeah, if you have any questions for us, feel free to send us an email and we'd be happy to schedule time to talk with you about it or just answer your questions in email.
And our contact information is both here. It's Heidi or Amy at healingforwork.com. I also included a link in the presentation here of the Calendly link. So if you want to talk with Amy, with me directly, we can talk for a while and talk about what your scenario is or any questions you have. So appreciate your time. Thank you.